So today's video is going to be a little bit different than the previous ones because I'm going to do a response video to myself 5 years ago, looking back at my longest streak of semen retention. Yeah, watching your own videos from the past is always a bit cringe, but let's see.
So what does 365 days of semen retention look like?
I ended up doing 500 days, but who's counting?
1 month over it by now. But I've had many people ask me, and it's a loaded question, no pun intended. So there's actually two sides to this story. When we start semen retention, most people, actually pretty much everybody, experiences an initial sense of empowerment. You know, your body's recharging, is filling up again with vital life force that you've otherwise would have been depleting. So you feel like invigorated, energized. Usually people say they're more confident, have more clarity, more drive, you know, to go and pursue their purpose, their vision.
This is true, no? I think you can tell from the video that there is a certain groundedness, there is a peace, there is a clarity, but there is something missing. Something that one of my teachers would call grit, but we'll get to that.
So all of these things are quite familiar to me because this has been a journey of about a decade of slowly building this up and customizing my body to hold more life force. So it's become a bit of my default state, I guess, and it's hard to say, you know, what the benefits are unless you're like jumping in, you know, fresh. You will see the effects quite quickly and quite clearly. So of course there is that, you know, if I tune in, I can say that most of the time my body feels quite orgasmic, and this is basically the journey that you start, and which is a journey of moving from orgasm as an experience to orgasm as a state of being. So that's the shift basically that starts happening, because the orgasmic state is our natural state, a state of bliss and ecstasy, and we don't feel it all the time because it's so intense, and because we need to prepare and accustom our body or nervous system to hold this frequency for longer periods of time.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important to have a practice in place to help you do this, not to regulate your nervous system as the intensity increases, so you don't fry your nervous system. But yeah, it goes deeper than that though.
And that's the second part of the story. In order to actually embody and hold that frequency for longer periods of time, there needs to be a resolution of the contractions we carry, and that compromise our system. And at this point, basically, we're talking about shadow work. So embarking on the journey of semen retention will start off with very visible benefits very quickly. But then after about, I'd say 2 weeks to 1 month, you know, you start reaching your capacity to which you can hold life force to a comfortable extent. And that's where it starts going to take you into that edge, you know. And really, as life force is building up inside of your body, it's going to start illuminating all these shadows, traumas and contractions and everything, all the places where the body is not yet able to hold that life force, that frequency. So it's going to start inviting you to open up, to crack open, and to reveal all these shadows and release and surrender all these contractions. And that's the part that's sometimes a bit less fun, but if you know how.
Less fun was going to turn out to be a bit of an understatement.
It works, if you understand why and how, then it makes it much more manageable. So So I know what I got into, and it just kind of happened naturally. It wasn't like I said, okay, let's do 1 year of semen retention. It just circumstances, just allowed me to go there, and turns out that I needed, actually, like, I can say that last year was probably one of the most challenging years. Part of it was transitioning into fatherhood, so all that excess energy was absolutely perfect, and I could use it to clear all my inner resistances as I was facing all the outer challenges.
So as you can see, I've never been a huge fan of counting days now, even though it's cool to say, like, look, this is my longest streak. If that becomes the goal, then it's kind of useless, right? And so the question should be, why am I doing semen retention? What is the goal? I was clearly, 5 years ago, I was going through a big transition, so it felt very natural to me. I didn't tell myself I'm gonna do 100 days, I'm gonna do 300 days, 500 days. That was never part of the plan. It was just as long as it was needed. It's a bit like medicine. Like, you don't take medicine 24/7 for the rest of your life. It's for particular occasions, like initiation, transition, a time for contemplation, preparation. Now, of course, to me, semen retention is still a lifestyle, but to me that means there is a balance. Like, to me, when I say it's a lifestyle, it doesn't mean semen retention until I die. There is a certain rhythm to it, and of course, if the occasion arises again, I might go for maybe longer, who knows? But it's not, it depends on what life presents and what's required. So, yeah.
And of course, it probably was not a coincidence. Like, if you do embark on this journey, you will invite, challenges, as if they are serving you in the purpose of clearing and illuminating these shadows, so you can actually embody that frequency more and for longer periods of times. So that's what happens. It's actually a proper initiation, and it happens from the inside out. No teacher, no plant medicine. This is tapping into your own master teacher, actually. And I like it this way because it's actually a self-regulating initiation. Unlike plant medicine, you take it and there's no way back. Whether you're ready or not, you will experience the initiation. You will get the teaching. With this, it's a bit different. You won't receive the teaching, you won't receive the power until you have already done the preparation, the opening up, the clearing of your system. So then it can be held. So you actually already have to have established a certain level of discipline before the teaching will arrive, and before the teacher will arrive.
Yeah, and for context, I used to do a lot of plant medicine, and eventually I ended up in a psychosis because of it. But that's a story for another time, maybe. But that adds a bit of context to what I'm saying here as well. And I've come to believe that plant medicine is forced revelation. I know some people are not gonna like that, but I've seen too many things and experienced too many things myself. For most people, it's gonna be fine, but for some, it's not gonna be fine. And some of those people never come back, and I've seen it several times.
And the revelation will appear. So that's actually quite an amazing self-regulating system then that we're tapping into. And that's why I love working with semen retention as a tool for awakening, because it will...
A tool, not an identity.
It will accelerate your growth, so one way or another. So, and again, this is something that I'm passionate about, and I've been guiding men through this process because it is very helpful to have that support, and to sort of understand the phases and the journey and how what to expect basically, and then you can prepare yourself properly. But of course, what you will discover in those shadows is you'll never know. But ultimately, they're always some sort of gem, a revelation, a diamond that is waiting to be reclaimed. So I can go in much more detail, of course, about my own personal journey, but that's sort of the layout. There's usually two phases. There's like the empowerment phase, which is all great, and then there's the healing phase. And depending on your stamina, I guess, you can go as deep as you want, and of course the level of support and tools that you have to navigate those energies. So this is something that I'll be offering again in the upcoming program called Turn Yourself On.
So yeah, these two phases, they're very common, and it's really helpful to be able to identify which one you're in. And it's not just like the first phase and the second phase and that's it. They keep coming back. There's cycles, there's seasons. There's seasons of expansion and there's seasons of contraction, which you might feel or experience as like a flat line. But this is where the real work really happens. It's where the integration happens. It's the most important phase of all, actually. And so there is a difference between doing the practice, such as semen retention, breath work, whatever, some movement you're doing, versus the actual work. Now, about a year after this video, I ended up plunging deep into the abyss of where the flat line started to look more like the valley of the shadow of death, because due to circumstances not related to semen retention, I entered a 3-year hell ride of chronic insomnia, and where the semen retention wasn't about feeling good anymore. It was just helping me to stay alive, I guess, and to kind of able to continue somewhat functioning as a human being. Perhaps to get some of that grit some of my teachers was talking about. So, and as much as I hated this part of my life, in the past I had seen a lot of my own some of my own teachers descend into hell themselves, and it's actually where I learned the most, by watching them die, so to speak, and then be born again or get through the other side. And I think it was this exactly, having seen this multiple times, that pulled me through these 3 years, knowing that there is life after death. And yeah, it's no surprise, because of all of this, that I started to feel a very strong affinity with Christ, because I couldn't find a solution to my suffering. This was imagine 3 years of 24/7, day and night, every single second, constant suffering, no rest, not for a second. And so I couldn't find a solution, and so I had to find a way to deal with the suffering somehow, give it a place, integrate it in some way, give it meaning, whatever it was. And I found that looking up to Jesus on the cross was the only thing that kind of helped me to make sense of things. And I do have a bit of a shamanic background of a long time ago, so I did recognize in Christ kind of also like the ultimate wounded healer, you could say, not just symbolically, but also as an actual reality, which was important to me, right? Because my suffering was not symbolic; it was very real. So yeah, and Christ, of course, heals because he knows suffering better than anybody else, right? And back then, as you can tell, I was already teaching, but there was still a certain detachment, kind of like slightly levitating above the human condition in a way. So I was able to guide people into the light, but I wasn't really able to pull people out of the dark, because I was unable to fully relate to their pain and their suffering. And yeah, I mean, looking at today, the present moment, I mean, it's much harder to have one foot in the dark, one foot in the light. But I believe that that's the place we actually need to be, and to be participants in the reconciliation between heaven and earth. And that's what I still do today. That's why I make these videos. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this bit of a change of format. It was fun. Before I sign off, I want to let you know that I just did a huge upgrade to the free training. And it's so much better. Like literally the structure, the presentation. I wish I'd done it before. I wish I'd done it sooner, but it is what it is. So if you haven't signed up yet, highly recommend it. It's called How to Embrace Your Desire Without Being Governed by It. And it's a culmination of 8 years of working with men in relation to sex. And it comes from understanding the deep frustration that we can experience in relation to sex, where we get stuck, how to get out of it. And so it's a bit like a roadmap to help you identify whatever, like literally whatever challenge you have around sex, and bring some clarity to potentially like the confusion you might have. So yeah, check it out. If you had already signed up before, I send you an email with the link to the new training, just so you know. If you are walking in the valley of the shadow of death, call me. Yeah, seriously. There's a link in the description. If you need help, let me know. We'll get together and see what we can do. If you can sort something out together. You know, why you're getting stuck and yeah, what's going on for you, basically. So, all right. We'll do this again next week. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.